Well, obviously, I think that the thing that's going to be the most important in the upcoming federal election is the Workplace Relations Act and the changes that have been made. The lack of fairness in the Workplace Relations Act for employees, and the fact that employers, despite the fact that there was supposed to be this fairness test in the Act, it doesn't seem to be working particularly well. I think that most people are going to find it to be the most important issue because it affects everybody who works. Some of the other issues that I think will come up, Iraq will be a very big issue. The war in Iraq and our constant following of the US into every little conflict that they want to be involved in seems to be something that we're all concerned about, and I think that the reliance by both parties on the US alliance is probably a bit beyond what you would expect most people to agree with. We don't particularly dislike Americans, but most of us don't particularly like the American president and what the American president has done or hasn't done over the last few years to make us feel happier about the effects this war has had on the entire world. And let's face it, it's in the years to come, this may be in history be considered to be World War III, and we're in it, and we don't know it. Other things that are really important to me, and I think will be big issues in the election, are the Aboriginal affairs situation, especially what's happening in the Northern Territory, where the government has gone in there and cut a swathe through the rights of all of the Aboriginal people within the territory. I know that that there are considerable problems with regard to child sex offences throughout the community, but when I say that, I say throughout the community, not just the Aboriginal community. And I cannot see that Mr. Howard would send a whole heap of army, social workers, police or whatever into South Yarra or into Melville or into the western suburbs of Sydney. So why send them to the Aboriginal communities? The reason is simply that he sees them as an adequate target that will not answer back in such a way that the rest of the community will listen. A few other things that I think are probably going to come up in this election will be the water conservation issues. I think it's going to be a huge problem for all governments throughout the country anyway, and it's not just water conservation, but conservation as a whole. But certainly water conservation is going to be a huge problem. Here in the Kimberley, we don't have a significant problem with water. We tend to have quite large reserves, but my view is that if the West Australian government or any government thinks that they should take the water from the Kimberley and pipe it off to Perth or anywhere else to create a garden in their own area, my answer to that is, instead of taking the water to Perth, bring Perth to the water. In other words, this area has sufficient water and has more than sufficient water for the people that are here, especially when you take into account the Ord River scheme. We use such a small percentage of the water that sits there idle in Lake Argyle, and instead of us shoving a pipeline all the way down to Perth for billions of dollars, bring Perth or the people in Perth up here and shove them where the water is. They're the big issues to me.